Hello, my name is David Santiana, and I'm making this video for Communications 3260 to talk about storytellers and the impacts that stories have in our lives. So, for this assignment, I'm going to be talking about my dad, and I think that my dad is the best storyteller that I know in my life, and he's played a really big role in me understanding the world and me understanding myself. So, my dad has 8 kids. Obviously, I am one of them. I'm the last of the 8, so I'm the youngest. So, by the time that I was growing up, my dad had told a million stories because when you're growing up, you ask him about everything. You ask about why the grass is green, or you ask him why we are cooking what we're cooking, or what different countries are like. So, my dad essentially has had to shape 8 young minds and help them understand the world as it is. And that's made him a very powerful storyteller. Some of the things that make him such a good storyteller is the fact that he's not always a reliable narrator. But I don't think that anybody is really a completely reliable narrator. I think that the best that you can ask for is that your narrator at least has some self awareness about where their knowledge ends. And that's something that my dad is really good at. My dad, having told so many stories to so many people, has gotten a lot of things wrong over the years and has been corrected a lot. So, anytime I ask him about something, he always approaches it with a very honest place. And he typically tries to only talk from his perspective, and that makes his stories more interesting to listen to because they're from his perspective, and they also make them easier to follow because you can kind of follow his train of thought, which makes things a lot easier as a listener. And they also make it easier to look back on and kind of derive meaning from the story. So, some examples of stories that were meaningful to us growing up and that had a really big effect on our lives was kind of like our origin story as a family. I think that a lot of families have kind of origin stories or some kind of personal form of mythology that they tell themselves to give themselves context for how they got to where they are and what they're doing and what they're working towards. For me, my both of my parents are baby boomers, so they have a lot that they think that I missed out on, and I probably did miss out on a lot. But they're baby boomers, and they also are refugees from Cuba. They came to the United States to escape the communist regime that had taken power there, and they wanted to live in a different kind of place than that. So when my parents came here, not only did they have a lot of opinions, strong opinions about the world that they had put on them by their parents, but they also had a lot of strong opinions that were being put on them by their environment. It was a really politically charged time, and I think it actually kind of relates to the climate of today, where some of the most sensitive topics about religion, spirituality, gender, sexuality, morals, all of these things were actually at the forefront of politics during the majority of their lives. And so they definitely had their positions on those topics. And those positions that they had were strongly influenced by their parents. So when I was growing up, they felt a strong obligation to give me the same stance and to give me all the same rationalities for those stances. So they have a lot of opinions, which means that they have to tell a lot of stories. Those stories didn't just add up to politics, but they added up to this broad story of humanity. You know, our family would try and trace our roots all the way back to Neolithic periods just over dinner. It was like, Dad, why did we leave Cuba? And then it was like, well, because this happened, and before that happened, this happened, and before that happened, and then before we know it, you know, we're talking about Adam and Eve, you know? So, stories were very important, and they shaped a lot of our worldviews, and they shaped our identity, and they shaped our understanding of the world around us.